Welcome to Revitalize and Replant with Mark Clifton, where we equip pastors to take their churches from declining to thriving by pointing them to a new future and a new hope. Join us weekly for encouragement and practical advice in your pastoring journey.
It is Revitalize and Replant with Mark Clifton. We want to make sure that you understand that, so that if anything goes wrong, it's Clifton's fault.
It's Mark Clifton's fault.
And I'm Dan Hurst. There's Mark Hallock over there. And we're sitting here mostly kind of laughing at Clifton and
That's true.
listening to him. He's tired. He is tired.
I am tired.
Been on the road for...
I've been on the road I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere.
There's a song about that.
There's a song like that. That's right.
Anyway, and Kyle Bierman over there running the controls. Today, we have something that we want to talk about that is so... we're talking about numbers here. Tangible ways that you can know that your church is growing and that your church is revitalized. In other words, you're putting the time in, you're working so hard to make sure that things happen with your church. Sometimes it feels like you're failing. Sometimes you are failing. What are some tangible things that you can look at and say, we're headed in the right direction. We're starting to see revitalization actually work. You know, and I love one of the things that you said, Clifton, in a few podcasts ago. You said we need to realize that when we talk about revitalization, we're talking about renewal.
Yeah,
and it's and that really is the issue for every church, for that matter.
Yeah.
But what are some of the tangible things? And so you've got Sam Rayner's article here.
I do. And I have Sam Rayner right here.
Right here, sitting
We're
next
not going to
to
let you talk.
Sitting
Sam,
on our shoulder.
We're glad you showed up today. No, I do appreciate Sam and Tom tremendously, obviously. And this is a really good article because, we live in the world of church revitalization. And, what's it mean to be revitalized? Does it mean you got 10 more people than you had last year? Does it mean, I don't know. This is not scripture here. I mean, even Sam would acknowledge this is still somewhat, subjective. But it's good stuff, and it's based on some good, solid research. So if you want to know, is your church... Because sometimes, here's what I get. I was meeting with a church recently that down to about 40 people, which nothing wrong with 40, but when you had 300 5 years ago, that's a problem, all right? Mm-hmm. So down to about 40 people, and their pastor had left, and they were struggling. And we were talking about, you probably need to be adopted. And they said, well, you know what? I don't know. We seem to be reaching some new people. We've had some visitors lately. Well, that's good, but that does not mean you've been revitalized. Mm. It may mean they just wandered into the wrong church. Yeah. But so, sometimes we try to convince ourselves we're in a revitalization, or we're not needing revitalization, I should say. And let's look and see if your church has these metrics. And these are good metrics to know that something positive is happening in your church that indicates you're on the right path to reaching people, expanding the kingdom, and being what God wants you to be in this place. So, Mark?
Yep.
Kick us off,
Let's
buddy.
do it. Okay, indicator number 1. Children and students comprise 25% or more of average worship attendance.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Linwood right now, where, the church we replanted in Linwood, Kansas, a town of 400. They had 95 a couple of weeks ago.
Did they really?
Yeah, they really did. It was a great awesome day. And I'm thinking about it, and yeah, I would say definitely, probably more than 25% are under the age of 18.
Why is that important? Why do you think Rayner, and because I totally agree with him, what does it indicate? Clifton, you go to a lot of struggling churches. When you see a church that has over 25% of kids, what does that say to you?
Well, it says there's young people in there, because like my wife and I, we ain't having no kids right now. Okay, so
those days are gone.
You have a lot of 60-year-olds in your church, but they ain't bringing an 18-month-old with them, right? Yeah. And the reality is, unless you are in the villages in Florida or Sun City in Arizona, where everybody in that community is over the age of 55. The reality is we live in communities with a multiple age of people. And the greatest movements of God in all of church history began with people a third my age. Mm-hmm. And it appears that God does some amazing things with young people. It's the energy, it's the vitality, it's the ability to quickly understand the context of 2025 North America and create and communicate the gospel well to that generation. They can do it better than older generations can. So there's an important part of knowing that we are reaching this next generation, and this church is becoming theirs. And so years from now, it's not like, again, I was at a church recently, very recently, and there were almost no children there, and my wife and I were like, these people they're like in their 80s. So what's going to happen 5 years from now? What's going to happen 10 years from now? And so I think it's really important for reaching the next generation. It's important for the future of the church. And again, it's just important to know that you're reaching young people, young children, young families. It just shows health. It shows vitality in the church. It shows you're moving beyond. Also, I'll hurry. It shows that you're not just your context is not just focused on older people and what we like, but obviously, if you've got a lot of young people there, then you've got some older people who are sort of submitting some of their preferences to what's going on with younger people. And that's a good sign.
Yeah, that's a good sign. Last thing I would just add is this. 25%, I think, is a helpful measurable, because what that says is it's not enough just to want or say you want children and young families there. Churches that have this number are actually doing things to see that becomes a reality.
Well, I wish I'd have said that. That's a lot better.
You know what I'm saying? So, in other words, this is the challenge, is you've got to have a strategy. It's not enough to have a desire. What are we doing? What are we doing with the kids' wings? What are we doing in terms of creating environments? Yeah. What are we doing in terms of safety so that a young family, they want to stick around because you're going there? So that would be the practical challenge.
So good.
On that one as well.
Because we do say young people go to church. They just don't go to your church.
Yeah. They're going to go somewhere.
And there's a reason they don't go to your church. And it's because the decisions you've made or you refuse to make. So that is good word.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that you just said that caught me, and you used the word "we." What are we doing? And pastors, we hammer on this all the time. But it's not your job to reach them. It's the church's job. And God is the one who's going to grow the church, right? And He's going to use His people. And so, man, you've got to get your senior adults plugged into this. They've got to believe in it.
That's right.
Your middle-aged adults, they've got to believe in this. It's got to be their passion. If it's not their passion, it's not going to happen.
Amen.
And Rainer also says that at this stage, we have 25% or more your worship attendance under the age of 18. Then really your budget for children and student ministry should equal or exceed your worship budget. So, again, what are you spending? And, I'll go to churches that don't have any children at all, and you look at their budget, and there's nothing for children's ministry. And you say, well, why don't you have any budget for children's ministry? And they say, well, we don't have any children, which is exactly why you need to put money in there to do something to reach children, to attract children, and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Indicator number 2 is conversion ratio reaches 20-1 or better. What does that mean?
Well, I don't know currently what it is, but at one point in time, churches that were over 20 years old, it was approximately 45 members to reach one person for Jesus and see them baptized every year, right? So if you look at churches, say we have, 450 members, and we reach 10 people a year with the gospel, and they become converted, baptized, and church members, right? Baptized church members. Well, then that's a conversion rate of 45-1, and that's been kind of consistent in larger, older churches for years. Whereas in new churches, when I was planting new churches a number of years ago, the ratio was somewhere around 15-1. So it was much better, much stronger in new churches, because new churches were like completely focused on trying to reach people. Mm-hmm. And so what he's talking about here is how many church members do you have, and then conversion and baptism, and then they become a member of your church. What's the ratio to that? And I do agree with him. Looking at statistics across all evangelical denominations, if your baptism ratio is really higher than 20-1, you've got some issues with needing to work much harder on evangelism.
That's good.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally makes sense. Let's keep going.
All right.
Indicator number 3, giving consistently exceeds expenses.
Yes, that's really a key. It doesn't exceed it by a lot, but you're not getting further behind each and every week or each and every month.
Here, can I read what he says? This is
Yes,
really good.
go for it.
He says, churches in decline often have cash flow problems. That's right. They spend more than they receive in gifts and offerings. These deficits are frequently out of necessity, surprise expenses. This is so true. We've all been there. Like roof repairs, air conditioning upgrades must be done. Cash reserves can forestall a complete financial collapse for a season, but most churches cannot last longer than a few years on their reserves. And then he says this, a revitalized church will reach a point where giving exceeds expenses and cash reserves are built rather than depleted. And that's true.
It is true. And I'm thinking of a church I know right now in Kansas City that have their building paid off and they're growing and they actually have more money coming in than they know what they should do with it. I mean, it's not like they just sit around and go, well, let's waste it. They're talking about where do we invest it ministerially. We actually have our income is actually exceeding our expenses, and that's a sign of a healthy, growing church. Yeah. It absolutely. Part of that is because the Lord's blessing you. The people are giving generously over and above. Yep. And it is one of the key signs of a declining church is when you're living off of your reserves. Or you're living off of the rent you have from a couple of houses that you used to own or whatever else it might be. We call that life support. I mean, you're really not living on anything other than life support. Eventually that's going to run out, and that's a really dangerous sign.
Yep.
This is a good indicator.
No, that really is. Okay, number 4. There's 4 and 5. Here's number 4. Deferred maintenance is minimized.
You know, I was in a mega church not too long ago preaching, and I'll tell you how bad off the mega church was because they asked me to come preach. So anyway, and they didn't have a pastor. And I was sitting on the front row. I looked up at the ceiling, and there was like some of the ceiling tiles were like slipping down, and then some of the light fixtures had turned yellow, and some of the carpet up around the stage was frayed. Now, there's nothing particularly wrong with that. I'm not saying that's a sign of your church is in decline, but that's certainly deferred maintenance. In a building that 40 years ago they would never have had deferred maintenance, right? I mean, no way in this megachurch. But you look around and you go, okay, they don't have the money or they don't have the desire. Yeah. It's you can tell it's not. And then if you walk in even to like Little Linwood where I serve now, I mean, if there's a light bulb that's not fixed, it's fixed before Sunday morning. If there's we got a leak sometimes in our ceiling like all churches do. And man, within a week or two, somebody has fixed that, painted over it, makes it look good. You never walk into Linwood right now and feel like, oh, that needs to be fixed. You walk in these older churches and you look around, and it's kind of like if you go to your grandparents' house, they don't see those things because they live with them, but you walk in and see them. But yeah, whenever you've got that deferred maintenance, that is something, a real warning sign to look at.
This is probably a different podcast, but it does make me think about churches we're working with where, quite frankly, their building is just way too big.
Oh, goodness, yes.
You see it all the time.
Yes.
And what do you do? What would you say to a church, even if they're starting to experience revitalization? I mean, like, say you're a church that was 20 people 5 years ago. Now you're running 120. Your sanctuary holds 800.
I know.
You're in a church that is massive, and you're going, dude, we just can't even keep up with all the maintenance.
Yeah,
that's the reality for a lot of guys out there.
It was the reality at Warnell Road in Kansas City. We seated 600, and we had about 40, 50 after 2 or 3 years of working there, and even after 10 years of working there, maybe 150. And so one of the things we did is we resized the sanctuary. We cut down the pews, literally made them smaller. Took some out of the front, took some out of the back, tried to make it more appropriately sized. But even so, we didn't have the money. This is a humongous old 90-year-old building. We didn't have the money to fix up the bathrooms. We didn't have the money to fix up the kitchen. We didn't have the. And I remember we were having a big event one time where the actual it was a event for life and for alternatives to abortion.
Okay.
And for life. And at this time, one of the Kansas City Chiefs' head coach Todd Haley was the head coach, and his wife was very involved in these right to life issues, and so was the owner of the Chiefs, Lamar Clark Hunt's wife. And so they were going to come and do an event at our church because of where it was located, and they were going to bring a lot of the Chiefs players' wives with them. And I'm thinking, oh my word, our bathrooms are frightening. These people are going to walk, and I shouldn't have worried about it, but I did. Yeah. So I went to our little board, and I said, man, we got to fix up these restrooms for all these visitors come for this big event, because these things they're bad. And they said, Clifton, we don't have the money to do that. There's just no way. And if we did, we got better things to do with that money in terms of evangelism and missions in our community than fix up our bathrooms. So I had some signs made up, and I said, and a sign said, I know our bathrooms are scary.
Enter at your own risk.
But we've decided to use the limited resources we have to bless our community rather than fix up these bathrooms. And I'm telling you, it couldn't have gone off better. People looked at that and thought, okay, I can understand that. I get that. That makes sense. So just acknowledging sometimes, if you put a sign up and go, look, I know we've got deferred maintenance, but we're going to make it eventually. It's better than acting like, do these people not even know how bad this place looks? Anyway, that's my story. And
although I will tell you, the Hunts, it shouldn't have mattered to them, because have you been to the restrooms out at Arrowhead Stadium?
Hey, they're good. They're good people, and
they are great people.
They cared about the right to life issues.
No, they are. They are great
impressed.
people. They really are.
With that.
But
awesome.
the bathrooms aren't that impressive.
Okay.
Okay. Here's the fifth indicator. Last one. The number of people in groups is 80% or more of average worship attendance. Now, I would say this. The first question says, well, what do they mean by groups? And I think we would say, hey, groups can look differently.
They do.
Because that may include, if you've got an older congregation, you might be like, listen, half our folks don't feel comfortable getting out and going into a home group at night. But boy, we're starting to really see some growth in our Sunday morning groups or whatever. So I think it's important to just define, when we talk 80%, groups can look different.
Yeah. Is it a men's Bible study group that meets on Monday night? Is it a women's group? Is it a Sunday school class? Is it are you in a discipleship triad?
Yep.
But are you involved ongoing in something other than just showing up on Sunday morning?
Say that again. That's
if
the
you're
point.
involved ongoing in something other than just showing up on Sunday morning.
Yep.
But you have to define the groups in a way that are actually ministerially functional.
Well, that's true.
I'm amazed at the number of churches that have groups that have nothing to do with anything that is of any consequence.
Like discipleship. They're not really discipleship.
Yeah, they call them that, but they're not really doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
So some sort of discipleship group, Bible study group, fellowship group, or something ongoing. Yeah.
Yep.
Which means you've got to create on-ramps for those.
Exactly.
Which means you've got to give people an opportunity. How do I get involved and how do I get engaged? Just tell them on Sunday morning, we'd like to have you in a small group is not enough.
That's right.
You've got to have a way to register them in a small group, have a table there or some way to connect them online, and be proactive about getting them engaged in a small group.
Yep.
Can I? We've talked about the 5 things that Rainer talks about here. That are they're concrete things, tangible things that you can use to kind of define where you are. I'd like to add one more.
All right.
Because this came up this weekend, as a matter of fact, working with my church. And we're in Exodus. And in Exodus 15, God says, okay, you've violated everything, the covenant, you've disobeyed me, you've rebelled against me, you've decided you're not going to do it my way, you're going to do it your way. And it was a low point for the Israelites out in the desert. And God comes back and he says, okay, I'm going to forgive you. Moses says, will you forgive them? He says, I'll forgive you. But he says, but I'm going to change your worship. And he gives them 4 things that are going to change their worship. And the fourth, go and read it. This is amazing when you look at it. The 4th thing is you are going to include the sojourner in everything that you do. If a sojourner wants to be a part of you, you are to embrace them and love them and include them, and they are to be a part of it. And I said, what is the word for sojourner? It's the word visitor.
Yeah.
And you have to embrace the visitor. And so I started looking at our numbers. And I realized that if we had kept so far, and I said this to the people, and you should have seen their faces. I said, do you realize that if 1 out of 10 visitors that we get comes back and gets involved in our church, if that had happened over the past 10 years, we wouldn't have room in this church.
Wow.
10%, if 10% of our visitors had come back, now that says that we are getting visitors.
Yeah.
What it also says is that we're not keeping them.
Yeah, and
Let's talk about that number.
Well, I know, and there's nothing wrong with coffee mugs, okay? But I don't know, frankly, how many visitors need a coffee mug with your church's name on it.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that, and I know I'm saying this, and I've received about 4 coffee mugs in the last 6 weeks.
If we give them a mug, they
Of
will
churches
definitely
that
stay.
say, "Hey, Mark, we have a gift for you."
We have a gift for you,
And
yeah.
It's like, okay, it's a coffee mug. That's nice. I think that there are better ways to assimilate visitors, and so guess what, Kyle? That's our next podcast. Because we do need to know how to do that. Not only assimilate, but follow up and connect. And, I appreciate the coffee mug and the gift bag as you walk out the door, but there's a whole lot better ways to do that. And so we'll talk about that in the next podcast.
Okay.
But, man, take a look at this. We'll put it in the show notes. Thank you, Sam Rayner, for putting this together. It is some great metrics. And share this with your folks when they say, "Is our church really? Aren't we okay?" And you go, "You know what? Take a look at this." And maybe, hey, listen to this podcast by these guys, because these guys really know what they're saying. They really do. They're sitting down in Dan Hurst's basement, just giving some amazing insight. And are we? I think we are. I don't know.
Well, there's some helpful things.
And please go ahead and subscribe. Every time you subscribe, a dying church comes back to life. I just
My
want
gosh,
you to know that.
They get their wings.
Hit their wings. All right. Goodbye.
Thanks for joining us today on Revitalize and Replant. This podcast is brought to you by the North American Mission Board, where we help dying or struggling churches regain health for the glory of God and the good of their communities. If you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. To learn more about becoming a replanting pastor or to explore resources about revitalization for your own church, visit churchreplanters.com.